Republicans.
Desperate.
Nice. Okay. Democrats.
Fools.
Climate change or global warming.
Mountain out of a molehill.
Donald Trump.
Wild man.
Hillary Clinton.
Conniving bitch.
Gay marriage.
Non-issue. No one's harmed by it.
Okay. South Park.
Funny.
Marijuana.
Not a big deal.
Okay. Gun control.
Unconstitutional.
Okay. Income taxes.
Ridiculously complicated.
Israel.
Israel is the only good place in the Middle East.
The Middle East.
Totally messed up.
Canada.
The North, nothing.
Asians.
Asians are, once they got rid of communism, they're doing really well. It should be wiped out. Yeah, well, certainly the income tax code is just horribly messed up. It's ridiculously complicated. There are all kinds of incentives and goodies that have been lobbied into it that don't make sense for our civilization as a whole. And those should all be eliminated. I mean, the sole purpose of the tax code ought to be to raise revenue. Well, I would go to a flat tax with no deductibles. I'd get rid of the mortgage interest deduction in there, which, by the way, was one of the things that fed the housing boom and then subsequent crash, which gave us 2008 and 2009. And then in terms of the corporate income tax, which represents maybe 15% of the total government tax take, so it's not a big deal, get rid of it. I mean, what we want is for our businesses to be competitive. And for them to be competitive, it has to be a friendly place for capital. And I'd be in favor of a VAT if it could be, limited as to how high the rate could go. The Congress, which is Republican controlled, has just been running scared. I mean, they're afraid to shut down the government. They're afraid they're always going to get blamed for shutting down the government. And since they've had control of both houses, they've done very, very little in terms of putting bills on Obama's desk. He'd veto them, but at least you would have a stronger philosophy out there. And so I'm very critical of the Republicans who have been leading the House and the Senate. I think the Republican Congress has been failing us.
So what I'm hearing you say then is that Republicans need to be less spineless?
Yes, and they need to make their case better.
Okay.
They need better salesmen.
Okay.
The Democrats really need to learn how to do math. And they need to learn how to do discounting, and they need to scroll forward another couple of decades and look at what the entitlement spending is going to be based on the promises that have been made to senior citizens to be. So you take Social Security, you take healthcare spending, and scroll forward a couple of decades, and there's not a scenario where it works.
So when you say learn math, that's just a flippant way of saying the problem with Democrats is that they don't understand the time value of money. They don't understand future value. They don't understand the value of compound interest.
Well, I'm sure some of them do. I wouldn't think by any stretch that all of them do, because if they did, they might not be Democrats. Right. But I also think that it's just a way to curry votes, to convince people that don't pay attention to the future. You're getting your goodies now.
Right. Would you ever consider running for political office?
No.
And why not?
Because I like the relationship I have with my wife. And it's just not that interesting to me. I'd rather figure out what's a good business and try to find a way to invest in that.
Okay. Are you comfortable with the fact that the Electoral College chooses the president as opposed to a popular vote?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Why?
Because California has a shitload of people. we'd have nothing but Democrats otherwise. I would move Israel.
Where?
Well, my favorite idea is to get the Arab states, the oil-rich Arab states, to purchase Baja California from Mexico. and move Israel there, have the U.S. sign a free trade deal with Israel, and we could really have something. It'd be a good example for the Mexicans, and it'd be a really good example for the Arabs it would remove that straw man. It would remove that, the false bogeyman that they use Israel to be. Another thought would be Somalia, which is a lawless place, which is in a prime location. And
probably cost a lot less.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
It'd be kind of neat to see what the Israelis could do if they went in and cleaned up Somalia. Yeah, then I think you'd put the United Nations in Jerusalem, and you put it right in the middle of the hotbed. Yeah, I mean, right now it's a joke. It's a joke of an organization anyway.
Right.
But they can all convene on the Upper East Side of New York City, which is they're not really right up against it.
Right. What other upside would be realized by locating the United Nations in Jerusalem?
Well, I think they would be forced to contend with the real issues in that hotspot.
Right.
And Jerusalem is the center of so much religion, and so much of the struggles going on in the world right now are religious struggles. Whether it's Islam versus Christianity, Islam versus Judaism, and it's all there. It's all there in Jerusalem. And if you look around the world, where all the innovation in healthcare, almost all of it has gone on in the U.S., whether it's with pharmaceuticals, with medical tools, hospitals, the innovation has come in the U.S., and that's the golden goose. I don't think you want to kill that. And eventually Obamacare will kill that. The real answer to getting healthcare under control in this country and continuing with technology development in the field is putting more and more and more of the responsibility in the hands of the patients and the doctors. But ultimately, the consumers have to be much more empowered than they are now. And so you've seen things like the deductibility of healthcare expense in corporations, which I think was something that was put in place, during some union squabbles in the late 1940s. That's a bad thing. That should be viewed as compensation for the employee, and he should be taxed on it. And we've talked about the corporate income tax, which is a dumb thing in the first place. But there's a perfect example of something in the tax code that promotes inefficiency. If we're just talking about the best thing the federal government could do would be to incentivize patient participation to a much greater extent in the system. If we have Chinese students, as an example, coming here to get PhDs, we want them to stay. If we're going to educate them, we want them to stay. So, that's a place to start. Oh, I think our military kicks ass. I love it. I'm proud of it. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the world relies on the U.S. to keep the world a safe place. And so that's not fair. And, where we are now, lo and behold, having won almost immediately in terms of history, on the heels of winning the Cold War, of saying that communism and socialism don't work. Now, lo and behold, where are we? Whether we we don't want to admit that we are, but we are in a religious war.
Right.
And, the people that want to kill us want to do it for religious reasons.
Right. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. I mean, if there is going to be a World War III, it's going to have religious roots.
Which is kind of amazing if you think about the circle of history.
It really is. It's just nuts. Really nuts.
The Department of Education. I mean, what the hell is that all about? The Department of Education was started, I believe, during the Carter administration, and since then, the performance of public schools has done nothing but go down. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to the parents. I mean, I think, what the teacher unions have been able to negotiate with the various authorities that they report to, has not been helpful. That the purpose of a teachers union is not to provide for a better educated student, it's to provide for more perks and benefits and a better working environment for the teacher. The benefits that have been given to the teachers unions have tended to work against educating students properly.
Compromise.
Tenure's stupid.
quality of
You know, that's like a fairy tale, or you know, Santa Claus or something like that, Tooth Fairy. You know, if we let these people have ultimate job security that they're going to perform better, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So the teachers' unions have tended to be a negative in terms of the product of public K-12 education. But the biggest problem by far is parents. And, you know, if a kid is growing up in a household, you know, without a father, that's I mean, you know, your odds are already pretty bad. But, you know, the parents have to care about education. And if the parents care about education, you know, the result of the kids is usually pretty damn good.
So how do you incentivize parents to care about
Exactly.
education?
Well, you got to stop enabling them to not care.
And so welfare systems and
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
safety nets that are too generous.
Paying women to have babies out of wedlock,
Okay.
you know, that enables the wrong thing. You could really lead yourself down the wrong road by thinking that, you know, bad people can be rehabilitated outside of a prison. And that's not to say they're rehabilitated inside of a prison, but, you know, there's some people that just need to be locked away.
For its merits.
Well, I think the biggest problem that we have in the U.S. that is not getting much airtime right now, but we've got like $19 trillion of debt, even more, I think, right now. And that number is going to keep going up and up and up and up. The strong politicians are going to stand up and say, hey, our predecessors made you voters a whole bunch of promises that, you know, they couldn't keep. And that was evil of them to do that. And it was stupid of you to believe them. You know, the combination of stupid and evil is what's put us into this position.
So your short answer is, John, there is no solution. We have to wait for a crisis to develop and then suffer the consequences of our own stupidity and selfishness.
I think that's probably right. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that we can't be a little bit more rational and forward thinking about it, but I think that's probably right. It's only going to change in a crisis.